Hi everyone, it's James here. How you all doing? I hope everybody's doing good. Back for a vinyl finds video, so got quite a lot of things to show you, so let's just get straight into it. So in the background you can hear this record. Let me get my eyeline straight. Donald Byrd's Best. This is on Blue Note, and this is the first record that I've ever picked up by Donald Byrd. I picked this up from Heightside Records, my local market stand, a couple of Saturdays ago now. It was only a cheapie, bit of a stocking filler. So Donald Byrd, let me get the history straight on this. So he's an American trumpet player, was an American trumpet player. I think he started out, or the earliest part of his career was spent in Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers. He replaced Clifford Brown in the Jazz Messengers, and he later went on to nurture the career of Herbie Hancock. And you can hear on this record it's got that kind of headhunter Herbie Hancock kind of vibe to it. It's sort of mellow, funky, soulful, instrumental jazz with a few little vocal refrains here and there. Really, really nice. Just good, solid mid-1970s soul, jazz, funk. Can't beat it. Okay, so let's start to show you what I've been picking up. I have been buying a lot of records recently, but I've been listening to them, so that's my excuse. Okay, so this next one, a band that's been cropping up quite a lot recently on the vinyl community. I've seen various people show this band. I've seen George over at Scott Spinner One, Chris at Vinyl Orchard, a couple of other people as well. This is Manfred Mann's Earth Band and the album Solar Flare, which is on Bronze. This came out in 1974. I think it was their fourth album. That's the Bronze label. Always reminds me of Motorhead. And it's a record I've been after for quite a long time. I often do see it in the wild, but it's one of the slightly more priced up ones. I've got a couple of their records, and they tend to be maybe, I don't know, under a $5. This one tends to be a little bit more. Not sure if it's because it's known as being a particularly good one. But I found this one at Heightside at a good price. There's a little bit of wear on it, but it's not too bad. So their fourth album, and so I mean clearly it's Manfred Mann, as in the guy from the original Manfred Mann, the keyboard player, South African I believe. And Manfred Mann's Earth Band was a kind of art rock, prog rock project that he had in the 1970s. This record features Chris Slade on drums. He was the guy that went on to be in AC/DC in late 80s into the 90s. I think he's on the Razor's Edge, isn't he, and a couple of other ones. Really great guitarist called Mick Rogers. That's him there. He left the band at some point during the 1980s, I think, then he came back. I think he's back with them again now. And this album, it's sort of a game of two halves. Side one I found a little bit tedious. There's a Bob Dylan cover, Father of Day, Father of Night, on it. They were quite keen on covering Dylan, but it doesn't do much for me, that. Side two is where this album really kicks off. Soul of Fire, Saturn, Lord of the Ring, Mercury the Winged Messenger, fantastic. Earth the Circle Part 2 and Earth the Circle Part 1. So you're talking really fast, progressive rock, but not fiddly-diddly kind of Yes style. More like perhaps Focus, or one of those bands that play with more of a kind of, driving, rhythmical kind of spirit. Great ensemble playing. Yeah, side two is the Dog's Bollocks. Fantastic. So, Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Solar Flare. Okay, now this next one was a charity shop find. Picked this up from Oxfam. And, it was a good price. I think it was £6, but it's a band whose records I do collect, and I see them very irregularly out there in the wild, so I was pleased to grab it. This is Sleepwalker by the Kinks. So this album was, let me just quickly show you the inner. It's quite a nice shot of the boys there. Interesting picture, and it makes Dave Davis look like the leader of the band. Ray is slightly back from him. Although this record, interestingly, Dave Davis doesn't have a composition on it. Usually on Kinks records there's at least one track by Dave, but on this particular album he doesn't get a look in. So this record was, I think it was, right, let me get this straight. Yeah, it was their first album on Arista. I think it was their 16th album overall. And it came after the period in the 70s when they'd done all these sort of quite heavy concept albums, or quite kind of theatrical concept albums. So you're talking Schoolboys in Disgrace and Soap Opera. And those records, which became very conceptual, they were not big sellers, and even though they're looked upon now with a great deal of fondness by Kinks fans, at the time I think there was a certain degree of impatience with them, I think. Commercially the Kinks had absolutely dive-bombed in the UK, but they were still doing well in America. They moved to Arista, made this record, and this was the beginning of a new commercial phase for them in America again, where they started to adapt their sound to the arena rock kind of audience. So there's a kind of smoother sound to it, more of a kind of AOR feel. There's still some good tracks. Stormy Sky is a lovely mellow tune. It sounds almost like something that Jeff Lynne might have come up with, you know, in the 1970s. Jukebox Music is a kind of upbeat rocker. Life on the Road, the opening track, has got some great Dave Davis guitar on it. The track Sleepwalker is quite good fun. And Life Goes On, the final track, is quite kind of upbeat and all good fun. 1977 on Arista. You know, it's not vintage Kinks, but I think it's quite a good one if you take the Kinks sort of arena rock years, you know, in context. It's one of the better albums, so yeah, that was a nice thing to find in Oxfam. Like I said, I find Kinks albums extremely rarely, so it was good to get that one into the collection. Right, making a mess here as usual. Next one, this one was Heightside Records. This is Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel, and the album The Best Years of Our Lives, which sounds like it should be a compilation album, but it's not. This was, I think it was the third Cockney Rebel album, but it was the first one with a new lineup. So there was a real sort of big, you know, messy divorce between Steve Harley and the original Cockney Rebel. You know, he was the main songwriter, but the other guys in the band wanted to write songs, and Steve Harley said no, sod off, you know, I'm the leader of the band. So the other guys in the band just left, they just jumped ship, abandoned Steve Harley. Steve Harley wrote a song called Make Me Smile, Come Up and See Me, which was written about that situation. It was him basically, you know, addressing his former bandmates. He put it on this record. He got a new band and just kind of went for it again, really, and had some success again. So yeah, I mean, Steve Harley was massive in the UK. I think it's often forgotten. He signed to EMI at the same time as Queen, and for about, I don't know, maybe 3 years, he had loads and loads of success, and then his career just dive-bombed, you know. He wasn't really able to sustain the commercial momentum. There he is. I think he was quite, I think he was a bit of a big head from what I've read, you know, quite egotistical. Liked his name up front. The previous Cockney Rebel albums were just called Cockney Rebel. This one was Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. But it's a really good record. You know, you've got some great players on here. You've got this guy here, Duncan McKay, who was on, I think he was on the first 3 Kate Bush albums. He's a keyboard player. He later went on to join Camel. He was on the album Nude by Camel, and apparently he was briefly considered as the keyboard player in Yes. Not sure if he ever auditioned or not, but he was a contender at one point. And this guy here, Jim Cregan, the guitar player, he went on to do a lot of work with Rod Stewart and the band Family. It's got a kind of sleazy, subversive quality to it. His lyrics were always quite subversive, is the best word I can think of for it, really. It's kind of, I don't know, there was a stanza here that caught my eye. It wasn't me who lit the kerosene, I only polished the floor with Vaseline and asked the doctor not to come around and hid her savings in the lost and found. It was all electric when her cuts went septic. I mean, it's kind of like, right, okay, Steve. Interesting songwriter, very, almost cut up lyrics sometimes. You think, almost like, you know, William Burroughs. Very interesting. Born of the glam scene, like I said, really big for a while, and then his career just basically went down. He's still around. In fact, he's still touring. I was meant to go and see him just as the lockdown happened. I bought some tickets, but yeah, that was not to be. Okay, I'm in a rambling mood today, I do apologise. Bit of punk. This is the Vibrators. So this came from Heightside Records, Pure Mania, their first album. So the Vibrators, I think they were a British punk band who came up in about 1976, so they were right at the start of the whole punk explosion. They used to play at the Roxy. I think they supported Chris Spedding. They supported the Stooges on an early tour. They made a couple of albums, didn't really have much commercial success. This one got into the top 50, I think. And one of the reasons it's famous, it features a song called Stiff Little Fingers, which is the song that the Irish band got their name from. Stiff Little Fingers got their name from it. It's a really, really good album. I must admit, I really enjoyed it. You know, punk can be a little bit, you know, it can be a bit not quite my thing sometimes. You know, the songs have got to be good, the production's got to be interesting. There's got to be a certain level of musicianship in music, really, for me to enjoy it. And punk often, you know, it kind of rolls things back a bit far, you know, into the realms of complete musical primitivism sometimes. But this record it just hit the right spot. You know, it's got that kind of classic British punk sound. Not really angry as such, just really kind of excitable and exciting, you know, really hard driving guitar sound. There's some great tracks, Petrol, London Girls, Whips and Furs, again a bit like the Steve Harley, a bit of a kind of subversive kind of edge to it. Really nice thing to find, it was only a £5. So yeah, I'll be on the lookout for their other record. Will I ever find it? Who knows? Right, moving swiftly on. Now this next one, I bought this from my local antiques place, okay, and I picked it up purely because I knew the name. Earl Slick, the Earl Slick Band. This is his first album. Now, I think I'm right, this guy here is Earl Slick. This guy here is Jimmy Mack, who was an American singer-songwriter. Now Earl Slick, for those of you who don't know, he was David Bowie's guitar player. Now the history is all a bit tortured on this, but essentially David Bowie recorded Diamond Dogs, went out on tour but didn't take Mick Ronson with him. He sort of got rid of Mick Ronson and he hired this sort of guitar gunslinger type American guitarist called Earl Slick, who played on the Diamond Dogs tour. He was subsequently on the David Is Live album, and then he played on the Young Americans record, and I think he played on Station to Station as well, but then he left the band and was replaced by Carlos Alomar, I think, on the Station to Station tour. Then in later years Earl Slick came back and he played with Bowie again in the noughties. I think he's on some of those you know, big kind of comeback albums that Bowie made. Well, not comeback albums, but you know, the later period. And yeah, so I picked it up thinking, okay, let's give it a try. And it's a really strange album. It's enjoyable, but it never does anything remotely inspiring. You know, there's no sense on it of, there's no sound of anybody being really excited about what they're doing. It's really well arranged, great guitar work on it, and nice interplay too between Earl Slick on lead guitar and Jimmy Mack also on guitar. So, you know, really well arranged guitars. And the sound, you know, think kind of, I don't know, Free, Bad Company, touches of Leonard Skinner, you know, Boiler House rock, and, you know, the singing, Jimmy Mack's voice has got this kind of gravelly quality to it. It's an enjoyable record, but it doesn't really sound as if it's trying to be spectacular. So it's definitely a keeper. I mean, I just love the shot of the guys on the front. You look at this guy here, so sort of 1970s, just mid 1970s, unglamorous. Just kind of working man's rock band, you know, bar band or something. I don't know. It was good fun. Nothing special. Okay, so we've got 3 more. This next one I picked up a while ago. This is probably going back at least, well, a few months. This also came from the local antiques place, and it's the first record I've ever owned by the Edgar Winter Group, and it's called Shock Treatment. And one of the reasons why this jumped out at me is that it features the guitar playing of, now I think it's this guy here, Rick Derringer, and I picked up one of his records from Oxfam a while ago. Really good guitarist, kind of American, flamboyant kind of, rock and roll guitar. I knew of Johnny Winter, obviously the blues guitarist. Wasn't too aware of Edgar Winter. Very distinctive looking guy, there he is. And this record actually is produced by Rick Derringer, and it's a strange combination. It's got a classic rock vibe to it, so think Queen, think Led Zeppelin. It's got a bit of bluesy stuff on it, a bit of pop stuff on it, but there's a couple of tracks on side one, The Miracle of Love and I think it's Do Like Me. They've got clavinet on it because Edgar Winter was a clavinet player, and they sound like Stevie Wonder. Really, really strange. Just these two tracks, they really sound like he's trying to do Stevie Wonder. And this album comes from 1974, so that would kind of, add up right in terms of the dates. So yeah, it's like a mixture of hard rock, pop. It also really reminds me of Todd Rundgren. It's got that kind of sweet, nostalgic soul, almost like 50s pop kind of vibe to it, classic American 50s pop, rock pop, whatever. Quite bombastic in places, occasionally a bit workaday, but really well produced. The track at the end, Rivers Rising, I mean, it just sounds like an excitable puppy just running around the room, knocking things over. It's quite euphoric. It really put a smile on my face. So yeah, I don't know, it's not exactly my thing, but I'm pleased I picked it up, and I would probably pick up more records by him if I found them. So, Shock Treatment, Edgar Winter. Two more. Now I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I'm going to do a video on this guy when I can get myself organised, but I did pick up a copy of The Slide Area by Ry Cooder, one of his 80s records from 82. Really good one. It's got a cover version on it of Gypsy Woman, which is really nice. Good version of Blue Suede Shoes and a few other things, some original tracks. We've got Jim Keltner on drums, of course. So I really like Ry Cooder's 80s material. I know there's a kind of school of thought that his 1970s work is really great, and then it kind of went a bit sterile in the 80s, but I think his 80s guitar playing is really, really, really good, and I'm increasingly enjoying his music, and his voice has started to win me over as well. I wish he'd just subscribed to this thing that he was a great guitar player, but perhaps not a great singer, but I'm now starting to appreciate Ry as a singer as well. So there we go. Right, final one. Hatchside Records. This was what I would describe as a moderate grail. Got to use that word with caution. It is an overused word, but I finally found a copy of this album. This is Born Again by Randy Newman, which is one of the ones I was missing. I'm still missing a couple, but this is one that I really wanted to get. I love the artwork on this. It's him being Gene Simmons from Kiss, essentially. I love this picture on the back. It's so kind of acerbic and satirical. Him sat at his big executive desk. And I'd never noticed before that his family also in the picture have also got the Kiss makeup. So this record, this sounds fantastic, this album. I used to own this album on cassette, going way back into the late 80s, and I always liked it. I don't think it's seen as being a sort of top drawer Randy album. It's got some great stuff on it. The most famous track on it is probably The Story of a Rock and Roll Band, which essentially, it's like a piss take of ELO. They were 6 fine English boys who knew each other in Birmingham. They bought a drum and guitar, started a rock and roll band. And Johnny played little violin and Bobby Joe played the big violin, the one that stands on the floor. They were all in the rock roll band. And he sort of arranges it to sound like, it's got that kind of cod classical mid-1970s ELO sound to it. And it's quite funny because in later years, Jeff Lynne was called in to produce a couple of tracks for Randy on his River of Dreams album. So there was a slightly awkward moment between them, I think, where Jeff had to say to him, what was that song all about? You know, were you taking the piss or was it meant to be a tribute? And apparently Randy said to him, oh no, you know, it was a tribute completely, you know, I was a big fan. I'm not so convinced now. You know, when you hear the record, I love their Mr. Blue Skies, almost my favourite is Turn to Stone, and how about Telephone Line, I love that ELO. But when you listen to it, it's definitely a caricature of their sound. It's a great track. There's some other really good songs on this record. There's a song called Pants, which just goes, gonna take off my pants, gonna take off my pants, gonna take off my pants, gonna take off my pants. And your mama can't stop me, and your papa can't stop me, and the police can't stop me. No one can stop me. Gonna do it right now, gonna do it right now. I'm gonna take off my pants, gonna take off my pants. Your teachers can't stop me, your priests can't stop me, the firemen can't stop me, and the president can't stop me. And then it ends with him saying, will you take off my pants? Only Randy Newman could write a song like that and get away with it. Just one of the greatest singer-songwriters of all time. And just a wonderful subversive spirit and a satirical slant to his work. And this record is written and arranged by Randy Newman, but it's produced by the absolute diamond mid-1970s kind of soft rock team of Lenny Waronker and Russ Titelman, who were just kings of that mid-1970s soft rock sound. So yeah, chuffed to get it from 1979. Born Again by Randy Newman. That's your lot. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for your subscriptions. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm going to make another video now, and I might well upload it on the same day as this one. That'll be a bit naughty. Catch you all later. Take care. Bye bye.